President Trump went to Atlanta today for his administration's Faster, Better, Stronger infrastructure program. The president spoke to a group of UPS workers at what was supposed to be an official White House event. But as was the case in the Rose Garden yesterday, the president used part of his speech to attack political opponents, including Joe Biden.
The Biden administration, our past vice president, opposes, think of this, all of our permitting reforms and wants to increase the length of the permitting process. Think of this. This is in his Bernie Sanders deal. Biden is happy to tie up projects in red tape, and we want to get things built. But they want to increase the length, so they want to increase it from that to much longer. Unbelievable. Biden wants to massively...
Despite voting Republican in every presidential election since 1992, Georgia is one of 6 states identified by our polling unit as a toss-up this year. A brand new national poll out from Quinnipiac shows Joe Biden leading President Trump in a head-to-head matchup by a commanding 15 points. The same poll has the president's approval rating dropping to 36%. Today, trade advisor Peter Navarro wrote an op-ed with the headline, "Anthony Fauci has been wrong about everything I have interacted with him on," mirroring an on-the-record statement given to White House correspondent Paula Reed this weekend. In a statement to CBS, a senior White House official denied a Los Angeles Times report that President Trump signed off on the column. They said Navarro was, quote, explicitly told in recent days to de-escalate the situation by top brass at 1600. And Chief of Staff Mark Meadows thought the op-ed was unacceptable. At the White House today, President Trump said he has a good relationship with Fauci, but that praise has not been consistent, including in an interview with CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge yesterday.
Dr. Fauci also came out strongly against masks, and that he was masked. So I'm not knocking him. I get along with him very well. But he's made some mistakes.
Politico White House reporter Meridith McGraw joins me now. Welcome, Meridith. Great to have you with us. So I want to play Dr. Fauci's response when asked about these attacks by The Atlantic this afternoon. Let's listen.
It is a bit bizarre. I don't really fully understand it. You know, I think that what happened with that list that came out, I think if you sit down and talk to the people who were involved in that, they are really, I think, taken aback by what a big mistake that was. And I think if you talk to reasonable people in the White House, they realize that was a major mistake on their part because it doesn't do anything but reflect poorly on them.
So Dr. Fauci doesn't seem fazed, to his credit. But Meridith, where is all this criticism coming from?
Well, there's been ongoing tension between the White House and Dr. Fauci, and then, of course, some divisions between President Trump himself and some of the health and science experts on his team working to combat the coronavirus. And Dr. Fauci happened to be at the receiving end of a lot of criticism. Of course, you mentioned over the weekend, there was a list of anonymous talking points outlining ways in which Dr. Fauci had made mistakes. And then Peter Navarro's op-ed this morning, as senior communications director at the White House, she said that that op-ed that slammed Dr. Fauci didn't go through the normal channels. And so the White House is really trying to do some damage control here for the criticism that they've been throwing at Dr. Fauci. And as Dr. Fauci said, they've realized that it only looks bad on them. And just speaking in terms of a public relations matter, in the middle of a pandemic, they want to be able to say that it's an all hands on deck effort with the federal government. And when they're throwing one of their top health advisors under the bus, that's really not the look that they're getting.
Right. And seemingly related to all of this is now the Trump administration is ordering hospitals to bypass the CDC when reporting their COVID-19 data. What is the purpose of this decision? Because optically, it doesn't look very good.
So this data on the virus is going to be bypassing the CDC and instead going to HHS and another health tracking system. And this was done, according to my colleagues reporting, because there has been some frustration within the administration about the CDC being able to handle this data in a quick way, and they feel that the CDC has hampered some of their response. Now, critics, of course, have said this is just another political maneuver and a way to weaken the CDC in the midst of a pandemic. But the administration, they still say that the CDC will have access to the data, and they hope that by being able to bypass them, they'll be able to get things done in a faster fashion.
So CBS News has spoken to several specialists about this decision to bypass the CDC. And, you know, several of them were pretty alarmed and are questioning the transparency of this new system, because a lot of people, a lot of doctors say, look, the CDC is supposed to be an apolitical body, you know, that people trust. They don't necessarily trust the government, which is where this information is now going. So explain this concern and how the White House is defending the move in the light of so many doctors, opposing it.
Well, like you said, the CDC is supposed to be an apolitical body here. They're not the White House. They're not political appointees. They're trying to work on public health, of course, in the midst of this pandemic. And although the administration has said that the CDC is still going to have access to the data, it does raise concerns about who is going to have access to this and the manner in which it's going to be done. Their hospitals now are going to have to scramble to try to, get their data collection done in a different manner. So, of course, it does raise a lot of concerns, and it's just another scramble that we've seen at the federal government level while we've seen the coronavirus on the rise right now.
And Meredith, help us understand the current concern about the president seemingly treating some official White House events more like campaign rallies.
Well, rallies are on hold for now for the president. And as we saw yesterday in the Rose Garden, he's eager to still get out there and take his talking points to the public. Yesterday, Biden gave his speech, and the president wanted to come back and throw some punches himself in a hastily arranged press conference there. He asked his aides to gather him talking points on Democratic policies, and he laid them out bit by bit there in the hot sun for over an hour. But yesterday in the Rose Garden, a lot of critics said that the president really went over the line in making this an overtly political event when it really should have been about China. And now the president's not the first incumbent to use the power of the White House to show off his leadership or the presidency. They call it the Rose Garden strategy, and it's something that's been employed by presidents going back to FDR. But with what President Trump did yesterday, a lot of people said it really went over the line in terms of him slamming Biden, slamming Democrats, and it sounded awfully familiar to the same sort of speeches that he gives at MAGA rallies that he just can't do because of the coronavirus right now.
All right. And so in his interview with CBS News yesterday, President Trump said he's no longer interested in trade talks with China, saying, no sooner had the ink dried on the phase one trade deal than China hit us with the plague. So that's a long way from how he spoke about China's response to the coronavirus a few months ago. So I'm going to play some of what he said throughout February.
I had a great conversation last night with President Xi. It's a tough situation. I think they're doing a very good job. The virus. They're working hard. Looks like by April, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true. But we're doing great in our country. China, I spoke with President Xi, and they're working very, very hard. And I think it's going to all work out fine. But President Xi loves his country. He's working very hard to solve the problem, and he will solve the problem.
I mean, that sounds a lot different than how he's talking about China today. So, Meredith, what changed for President Trump between then and now?
Well, whatever kind of honeymoon period there was between President Trump and President Xi Jinping of China in the wake of their trade deal is certainly over. Yesterday, the president signing the Hong Kong Autonomy Act and then an executive order that ends preferential treatment for Hong Kong, in addition to sanctions against Chinese officials for their treatment of ethnic minorities, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying that China's claims to the South China Seas are unlawful, are really just an escalation this week that we've seen from the administration in terms of their relationship with China. And as you played, that the president said he has no interest in talking to President Xi Jinping. He said he hasn't had a conversation with him of late. But it really has been a shift for the president from what we saw at the beginning of the year. He's really tried to make China, of course, the fall guy, of course, for the coronavirus. And this is going to be a huge election issue. It's something that the Biden campaign has really tried to hit Trump hard with. And the president really wants to show that he is going to be tough on China. And I don't think we've seen the end of this with the talk of phase two, a phase two trade deal out the window. It does call into question the fate of the phase one trade deal, if China is going to live up to their end of the bargain. And then, of course, there's been some talk about potentially decoupling Chinese supply chains from U.S. technology firms, raising issues over national security. So I really don't think we've seen the end of this, especially as this is such a critical issue going into the election.
The saga continues. All right. Well, Meridith McGraw, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.